I had my ring on. There was no move there. But I said, you go to school here? I said, no. And then she goes, you're Lynn Lashbrook. And she didn't recognize me and I didn't recognize her. But we don't meet in Ames, Iowa very often. So anyhow, thanks for coming by. Tell them your story, assuming you went to high school.
Yeah.
Then we'll go Farren and Joe, and we'll get right into Q&A. Thank you very much.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I am so thrilled to be back with Dr. Lashbrook. I've been speaking on this panel for a number of years and just always love seeing the individuals that are, again, investing in themselves okay. Is that better?
I'll give her this mic.
Is that better? Oh, there I am. Hello. No, great to see so many faces of people that really have a desire to work in sports and want to do it the right way and want to learn and be introduced to great individuals and hear great speakers. So I love being part of this. Born and raised in Oklahoma, I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a bachelor's in journalism and then went straight to law school and ended up graduating from law school also at OU. I won't say when, it was a few years ago. And had a very normal, very boring law practice. I was a civil litigator. But I also had a sort of a passion project on the side as I was practicing litigation and working my way towards partner in my firm. I also had a real desire to work with nonprofit organizations and work with people who had a vision to make an impact on other people's lives and make the world better. And so worked with both on the litigation side in trial work and nonprofit organization law. In my 5th year as an attorney, I became a partner in my firm, but I also got a phone call that changed the trajectory of my life. It was from a young man and his family he had been a quarterback at OU, University of Oklahoma, and had started a foundation and had run into some issues with his foundation with trying to do things compliant with the IRS and with the NCAA, and they were looking for an attorney who was a litigator who could take on the IRS and help clean up some messes. So I did that with them, and his mom at one point looked at me and said, "Where were you when we were looking for an agent?" And I said, "I promise you, I am not Jerry Maguire. I've seen the movies, I've seen the TV shows, that's not me. I am an attorney, I am a zealous advocate for you, but I'm definitely not an agent." And she said, "Well, you need to open your mind up to that." And I remember stiff-arming the idea at first and then going, well, I don't even know what an agent, other than what I've seen in the movies, I don't know what an agent does or is. And so I spent about a year researching it, and it just was one of those thoughts. It planted a seed that just did not go away, and I realized, wow, this may actually be exactly where I was supposed to pivot. And so it was one of those things that just planted a seed that continued to take root and grow. And the more I learned about the agent industry, the more I wanted to run the other way, honestly, at first, with what I saw. But then after a year, I knew that I belonged in the industry, and I knew that I could use the skills and the talents that I had developed, and just my love for sports, my love for the discipline that it takes to be an athlete, and as well as my desire to be a zealous advocate for people and things that I believe in, and then thirdly, my desire to help people make an impact using their resources and platforms. And so it all came together. I got certified in 2005. This is my 20th combine, and I've represented players in every draft since my first one in 2006.
And she still looks young in an Applebee's, I can tell you that. We'll come back to you. Let's go to Farren with your story. Everybody has a different story.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm Farren. I grew up in Southern California, went to USC. I was a track and field athlete at USC, and I think being an athlete in college really kind of helped me jumpstart into this industry. I was a track and field athlete, hammer thrower. Any hammer throwers in here? Nope, don't even raise your hand. So on the NIL scale, I'm like where the ground is, just like maybe 1 inch above it. So yeah, NIL money would have been flowing to me. But no, I think like being an athlete in college really kind of put me in the room around people that were, playing football, playing basketball, and competing at a high level already at USC. And so when I left USC, I spent some time in tech. I was working at Twitter at the time, and left that opportunity to start a sports agency with a fellow Trojan, Keyshawn Johnson, back in the day. And started there. I started on the marketing and like PR client maintenance side. And my degrees from USC, I got my bachelor's in public relations and sports media, and I also got my master's there as well. And started on like the off the field side. So I was the person that agents at our company would sign clients, And then they would go do the contract negotiation, then all the other things off the field would come to my plate. Whether that was marketing, client maintenance, services, business management, foundation stuff. And so that was our first draft was 2016. From there, I bounced around. I had started in this industry interning at Athletes First, so I had a really, really great foundation from learning from everybody over there. Still talking and love them to this day for everything that they did for me there. Bounced around to a few different agencies and stuff along the way, and then in 2024, I broke off and started my own agency, Far West Management. So I got certified. This is my 6th year being certified. I think, or this is my 5th. This season will be 6. And I do not have any rookies this year in the draft. It's kind of nice, I'm not gonna lie. This combine has been really pleasant for me. But I actually specialize a lot in working with veterans and whatnot, so on and off the field. And yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been very fun. Yeah, we are all navigating the NIL landscape right now. And yeah.
Which course did you take?
I took your prep course with Joel, my professor right here that helped me take the course. But yeah, I'm going in year 11 in the industry. This is combine 5 for me, and year 5 on the way to 6 of being an agent myself.
So before I go to Joe, thank you very much. Joe was not part of our company. We're down in Vegas. A guy named Mark Eisenberg that wrote a book about college finances and representation. He and I got in a big argument, not Joel and I, but Mark, over paying college athletes. Said, no, you can't do it. It'll ruin the world. Well, that's over with, and Mark and I are still friends. But he introduced me to his roommate, classmate, and Joel was down in Las Vegas. He's been with us ever since. He's a superstar when it comes to taking the agent course or passing the agent exam, and he's a friend of the family, and we're lucky to have him. I welcome Joel Corry with your story, assuming you went to high school.
Yes, I'm Joel Corry. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee originally. Went to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Played basketball there. Was a shooting guard trapped in a point guard's body. I knew around my junior year in college that I wanted to be an agent. Did not know how to accomplish that. Something like SMWW didn't exist when I went to college. So I decided I'd go to law school, and I'm thinking big city. So when I'm looking at course catalogs, have to have a sports law class. Being from the South, I don't like cold weather. Anything above the Mason-Dixon line is out. There's this old saying, go west, young man. So that's what I did. Went to UCLA for law school. My hunch was right because the sports law class I took second semester, second year, changed my life. I had a project of a fictitious Dodgers baseball players, a salary arbitration, negotiation prior to an arbitration. The Dodgers general counsel participated in the project because my professor knew industry professionals. I didn't really know what I was doing, but impressed those two well enough that someone looking for a summer intern called my sports law professor. I got recommended for an internship at a sports agency. Now, here comes the hard part. I already accepted a paying summer associate's job at a law firm, so now I gotta tell mom and dad, guess what? I wanna work for free, so you have to support me for the summer. I have to thank my mom for twisting my dad's arm. So I took the internship. I was told at the beginning, this has no advancement beyond the summer, so I'm optimistic. I'm thinking I can change somebody's mind by the end of the summer. Turns out I did. 3rd year, 1st semester, I was asked if I wanted to come in a couple days a week and get paid something, which of course I did. And then I got offered a job for when I got out of school. My main boss, Leonard Armato, at the time, represented Keem Olajuwon and Ronnie Lott. When I was getting out of school, he signed Shaquille O'Neal. Now, being a basketball player, I'm thinking basketball agent. But Leonard did not want to be like David Falk and sign every client under the sun using his main clients. David Falk was Michael Jordan as a magnet. Leonard wanted to be highly selective. Great for Leonard, not good for Joel, because a late 1st round pick, he doesn't want. So I ended up gravitating to football more, and me and the head of the football department built up a practice with about 25, 30 guys. We have the most amicable split you will ever have in the industry. Leonard let us build up a practice on his dime, and he didn't want any ongoing obligation. So we took the clients free and clear. We still shared office space with Leonard for another 4 or 5 years, and I served as consultant for Leonard on certain Shaquille matters, one of which was being Leonard's numbers cruncher, right-hand man when Shaq was a free agent and left the Magic for the Lakers. At the height of our football agency, our marquee clients were John Randall, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. For those of you who don't know who he was the forerunner to Aaron Donald as an undersized, disruptive interior defensive lineman. The original Pat Surtain, senior, who played for the Dolphins. Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Steven Jackson, Willie McGinnis, some of our main clients. I got out of the industry about 15 years ago, but stayed in sports. In addition to classes I teach for SMWW and their athlete management, the prep course for people who want to get certified and become the NFL agent is another one in the salary cap course. I have a regular column for CBSSports.com called An Agent's Take on NFL Salary Cap and Contract Matters. Also do litigation consulting, serve as an expert witness in sports-related lawsuits.
So thank you, Joe. Now, real quickly, I got 2 more questions. You can start lining up because there'll be questions here. Kelli, my theory after getting Ralph Dawkins and then 2 years later through the mom, I got Brian Dawkins. I call it the Ralph rule. Give a little of your elevator speech to somebody being an agent or how to grow your agency. Just whatever your philosophy is.
Well, I feel like that has now shifted because of NIL.
Yeah,
I think we're
we'll get
all
to that,
seeing
right.
that. We could spend a whole nother hour talking about that. So yeah, the model, wow, there's a lot to unpack there.
You didn't include NIL because it's one question, right?
Right. So I got certified 20 years ago, and the world looked very different.
Yeah.
20 years ago, that was pre-Twitter, that was pre-smartphone. We really actually had to get out and travel and go and meet people, and really rely, which I still to a certain extent rely on relationships and referrals. And but when you're first starting out, you don't have that. So you find whatever it is that makes you stand out, whatever you feel like you have to offer, and then you convince someone to trust you with their son's future or with their future. And that's what I did to initially get clients. Was I was fearless in just getting any and every room that I could, trying to land a client that was going to be drafted. My first 5 years of doing that, I could just talk my way into the finals of when a player was picking between 2 or 3 agents, and I would always lose out to the bigger companies. In 2010, that changed for me personally, and I was able to land Gerald McCoy, who was the number 3 overall pick in the draft. And I didn't realize it at the time, but we made history together. And it really was him. It was him and his family looking at me and saying, we believe you know what you're doing. We know you're tough. We know that you're respected in the NFL, and we don't care if I had never even represented a draft pick at that point, which is insane to me. And so my first draft pick was the number 3 overall pick, and who also got a $63 million contract. That doesn't happen anymore for rookies. That's 2 CBAs ago. But that's how I kind of started. And then of course, using that success to parlay into recruiting other clients. The business started more, it was this way when I started, but it even became more so about the money that was being invested up front in clients to even now, if you want to sign a first or second or even 3rd round pick, you're likely not just going to have to pay for their training, which could be over $100,000 per player. But they're also looking for marketing advances of anywhere from $100,000 to over $1 million. And if you're not willing to lose money, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you're not going to sign a top pick. It does happen still. There are still the unicorns, but that kind of became the business model. And so my model shifted later over the last number of years of really signing the day 3 players that I only had to put $50,000 to $70,000 into, as opposed to hundreds of thousands. And I've had a lot of day 3 players that are either day 3 picks, 6th, 7th rounders, or free agents that have gone on to become starters, Pro Bowlers, veterans. I just did Tress Way's deal, who I didn't invest a single dime in up front. I was the only agent he talked to, only agent that reached out to him. And he just signed a contract going into year 14 in the NFL and made his 3rd Pro Bowl. I'll stop there, but now the model is NIL.
Yeah, and we have an NIL pen on. I want to save some for that, but you're right.
That's where the revenue is, and building your pipeline
And the
for recruiting.
relationship, right?
Yep.
Farren, your comment to the elevator speech.
I agree with so much of what Kelli just said. you have to pay to play, and you have to be in that mindset of when you're going after certain players, what are you willing to put in? I actually have, she's shifted her model, and I've actually also shifted mine. My model is now going after veterans, people that have either been with agencies that feel that they are not being seen by their current agencies. Maybe they have a disagreement down the road with their current agent or their current team, or maybe their agent decides to retire and they kind of don't like the other options that are at these bigger agencies. And for that reason, I have done a massive shift in this industry. I am a solo agent at a solo company, and so for me, I don't have $400,000 to put out to go try to get Makai Lemon from SC that also went to my high school. Like I don't have that type of infrastructure for him as far as those finances go. So for me, I've kind of gone very down the hill of working with veterans. I have worked with all of my veterans that I currently work with for 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, 5 years, and 4 years. And it's a very nice testament for me of saying that I've worked with these guys since the day that they left UCLA and Ohio State, and they've never left. And so I find that I kind of come to the table with a little bit of a different view of how I can turn a veteran into a Walter Payton Man of the Year. I have 4 of those. So I kind of approach things a little bit differently now with this changing landscape and really kind of hone in on the guys that I have, and also try to find other guys that are building things off the field to help those veterans.
Joe, you've watched a lot over the years. Your comment on the future of the agency.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go back, well, when I got started, no one was paying for training.
Yeah,
I'll give you
right.
an example.
Go
Willie
back to
McGinnis's,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Willie McGinnis's training was working out with his position coach, the strength coach. He went to Long Beach Poly, and the track coach for the 40.
I had a first round Mark Fields, and we brought in a scout for a high school gym to show him how the 40 and everything worked. That was our training. It probably cost less than $1,000.
I'd say right around the turn of the century is when that started to change, where even the late round picks were expecting for you to pay for training. And the business model is unique because you may not make any money on a draft pick. If you have a late round pick who does not sign a second contract, you're probably losing money on him. The ideal situation is Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and Kyle Strongen is someone who is now able to subsidize paying for his draft picks because of what he's making off of Brock Purdy. Now, here's the thing which is interesting to me now. With NIL, these guys who are going to be top of the draft are getting paid. So I don't understand why they still need someone to pay for training, but that's kind of.
How do we highlight that?
That's
still
Put
the
a star
nature
next
of
to
the
that.
business now.
No, you're right, Joe. You're right. Okay, questions. Let's go.
All right, so
Introduce yourself. Come on.
my name is Grant Parker. I'm in my first year in law school, and I'm 25. I'm just wondering, like, if you guys could go back, what would be like your prescription of like what I should do next? I'm like wondering, do I get in at a firm? Do I get in at, just any litigation or whatever experience? Like, what do you guys think is like
Besides the
The road
agent
map.
advisor program.
Right. You're in a great place right now already. Here's what I'm going to say. Everyone's path is different.
Yes.
What I did worked for me. I'm so grateful that I have a journalism degree. I'm grateful that I was a trial lawyer. I gained so much experience doing those things that now I utilize day in and day out in what I do as an agent. So we're not going to sit here and tell you to do things exactly the way we did them. You have to find your path forward, and what builds your confidence, what builds your skill set, what puts you in the right rooms to meet the right people to accomplish the things that you're going to accomplish. Because it's very true of most industries. It's especially true in sports. It's not just, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's what you know and who you know. And so putting yourself in a position to learn as much as you can, get experience to develop in those areas where you truly feel called or feel like you do need to grow. And if that means working for a law firm and honing your legal skills, your negotiation skills, your advocacy skills, your understanding of the law, whatever that is, if that's what you feel like you need to be at your best, pursue that. But get yourself, the fact that you're at the NFL Combine right now and you're in this room is definitely the right step forward when it comes to learning what you know and also do know.
Farren, your comment.
Yeah, I would say the way to make money in this industry, and it's starting so much earlier now, is you have to put yourself in a place to know players. you have to sign players. So everybody in this room, we can all be lawyers. The people that are going to become good agents are the ones that can convince a player to sign with you. So, you may want to go to a big firm. Well, so is everybody else. How is that going to get you players? So potentially putting yourself in a position where you can align yourself with younger guys. I mean, this is now starting at the high school level. It's sickening. But aligning yourself with high school players or college players and being in a position where you are around those people. So when it comes time for them to make a decision on someone that they want to work with and who they trust, you're the person they think of.
Joe, quick comment.
I'm going to pick on something she said. Recruiting is sales. So if you have any type of sales background, there's something from that you could take which you can utilize in recruiting. And now, given the landscape of NIL, there's nothing preventing you from going down that path. It's highly unregulated. To be a player contract agent, you have to be certified by a players association. That barrier to entry does not exist. So if you became the NIL person for someone, did a good job, that could put you in first position to be the contract agent, assuming you were certified. And if we're talking NFL, you've taken my prep course and passed that one.
Nobody's in my 150 clients, nobody ever asked what my degree was in or where I went to school. Just share that with you. Next.
Hi, Patrick Winnan from Miami. Do a lot of agents also represent coaches? And would you recommend coaches that are trying to break into the field to find an agent before getting on staff? Where do you spend your resources?
Actually, some do. Some transfer or transition out of being a player agent into a coaching agent, like Jimmy Sexton used to be a very prominent player agent and now represents practically every SEC coach under the sun. We represented select coaches, and our first coach came through my boss, Leonard, because he introduced a good friend of his in college at University Pacific to his wife. That guy got promoted from defensive coordinator to head coach, and Leonard had us work on his stuff. He had so much Shaq and Keem stuff. And when we split, we took Pete Carroll with us. And at one time, we had Pete's whole coaching tree. So that kind of can grow organically, the whole coaching thing, but it really can be a separate industry that there are specific
Farren
coaching agents.
And Kelly, I don't allow it in my company after I lost Ryan Lee to Lee Steinberg, and he also represented Mike Price, and it got ugly. And I just realized there's a conflict there, even whether you do it or not. You got to be
hard,
careful.
right? It's hard. And honestly, coming from a law practice into the agent world, I started looking around going, I am just seeing conflicts of interest all over the place, and no one seems to care.
No, I know.
Like, what is happening here?
I know.
I have just organically have represented some coaches
Sure.
over the years, but I have found it, when I had the running backs coach at Detroit and I had a free agent running back, it created some super awkward conversations. And you still, as an NFLPA certified agent, when you sign an SRA with any client, if you represent or have represented someone on the other side, a coach, general manager, anyone, you have to sign a whole form and disclose all of that, which to me tells me that the PA knows that this is a conflict of interest.
Joe appreciate this. When Jim Steiner, we had Ralph Dawkins, and we ended up going to New Orleans. Bobby Betzer was in San Diego, really wanted Ralph. So he called the parents and said, you're getting screwed because Jim represents Bill Kuharic. And I had the whole speakerphone conversation. It's great stuff. If Farren, do you have any comment?
Nope.
Okay,
I got
go ahead.
one more point about conflicts of interest in this area. Under National Basketball Players Association rules, you can't represent active players and also coaches. So they do take that
I think
conflict
the
more
NHL's
seriously.
that way too. Yeah. Next lecture right over here.
Hi, my name is Reed Kaliga. I am a intern at Huston University. I also go there. I intern for sport information. I also am interning with Vanguard Sports at the
What's your
moment.
question?
Just wanted to introduce myself.
I know.
But my question is, what are the little things that matter the most when having and retaining a good relationship with an athlete?
Oh, I can start. This is kind of like where I pride myself because I will say, like, I do not have Rolodexes as deep as Kelly's or Joel's. I always tell people, like, my Rolodex is as thick and as big as the people that I've had to work with. So, if I've never represented somebody on the Lions and the current coaching staff and I don't know anybody there, then I have to kind of start from scratch. And so what I really pride myself in is doing all the extra things. And what I mean by that is all the things off the field that no one's thinking about. Do you know your clients' families' birthdays? Do you send anything to them? Do you make sure to reach out on anniversaries? Do you know your client's wife's birthday? I do like those little things in between that kind of make a little bit of a difference. So in a world that we're in that is so business and it's so transactional and it's such a financial kind of focus, I like to kind of tend to do the things that people don't always think about first, and I put those things first. And those usually build very, very strong relationships and go far beyond just what they're doing on Sundays for 18 weeks. And so I think it's very important. Everyone can approach that very differently. I mean, if you have 20 guys, you cannot make it to every single person's birthday party with everybody's family, but they enjoy knowing that you think of them as something different off the football field and their families and their close,
Good
friends.
stuff. Next question.
Hi, my name is Charlene Jones. I live in Omaha. I just submitted my application for the certified agent a couple of weeks ago. My question is, of course, we celebrate the kids who get signed and these kids live their dreams of being NFL, but what about those conversations post-draft and undrafted free agent and no mini rookie camps, navigating them through the next process of not being selected?
That's a whole different animal, the undrafted process, because towards the 5th round, coaches, someone from a team will call someone they think won't get drafted, and someone will tell the player, a position coach, like a linebacker coach, if the guy's a linebacker, I'm fighting for you, I'm trying to get you drafted, but if we don't take you, I want you to know I was pounding the table for you. We want you here. So that's a process where everyone after the draft signs almost immediately. Some of those deals are done by the 6th round or the 7th round. And if you aren't signed, I'd say within 48 hours of the draft being completed, you are going to have a hard time finding a job. Our old marketing guy who became an agent was relentless one year with the guy that had a free agent tryout, didn't get signed because I wanted to switch positions. He kept pestering teams, eventually got him in at training camp with an injury. This guy made a practice squad, and then the next year made a team. It was on a team for 5 years. But if he hadn't been persistent and kept after it, and those types of guys can slip through the cracks, particularly if they sign for a bigger agency, because they have bigger fish to fry, and they're not going to pound the pavement for a guy like that. So you have to be prepared to be very proactive and aggressive in trying to find opportunities for guys like that.
I tell an
Thank you.
athlete parents, I don't want to represent you. You're not going to be drafted. I don't want to represent you if you're going to tell your grandchildren my agent screwed me. That's what I start out as a precursor. Let's go to the next question.
Hey everybody, my name is Skylar. I want to thank you guys for the time today. I had a question kind of for everybody. So when you're deciding,
No,
whether-
just to one question.
no, like I'm
Okay,
saying, just
yeah,
like
okay.
yeah. So when you're deciding whether to take on a player before the draft, I know you said, Ms. Benjamin, that you weren't taking any this year, but what are you guys paying attention that has nothing to do with the tape? Like any red or green flags off the field that you guys have paid more attention to?
From a strictly business standpoint, you have to look at medicals.
Yeah.
Is there a medical history there? And then also do the deep dive to know about the player as a human being. What their coaches in college may be saying about them, what their high school coach may say about them. They may be, saying this is the greatest kid ever. I think I have learned the hard way. Do the due diligence, ask the tough questions, find out if there are any red flags, any issues from a character standpoint, from a just emotional stability standpoint, and really dig in and ask the tough questions of the player to find out who he is, what he really is determined to accomplish. And it's not just like saying that, oh, I don't want to take that kid because he got a DUI or something. Obviously, that's a red flag. But also working with a player that may be a great player, but is an absolute head case, doesn't want to put in the work, entitled, and maybe has, family members that are involved that are the same way. Just knowing the whole, as much as you can about a situation and about a player off the field as you can, get to know as much of that information, and to me, that is just as important as knowing, approximately what his 40 time is going to be, how much he's going to bench, and what his stats are in college. You have to know the player.
Anything else, Farren? Okay, next question.
Hi, just so I know, I played football at UCLA, and I had a couple of former teammates that kind of went through the process of, being with agents and then getting to the league and kind of getting distracted, I guess, by the money, by the fame, by everything involved. Is there anything that you guys do to kind of support the longevity and focus of your players while they're your clients at the time?
I've experienced this with one of my younger guys, and at the end of the day, like, you got to put on the pads and do the work. I can't go to practice for you. I can't convince you to go to practice. I can't convince you to go to the weight room. I can't convince you to not drink. That's back to what Kelly just said. It's a character thing. And so when you're in the NFL, like, you have to grow up at some point. And so for me, it's very much like I've gotten into those situations. I've seen it happen. And at the end of the day, there's tons of resources for these guys. There's tons of things that we all know and numbers that we have of people that can help. But at the end of the day, they have to want to help themselves.
We actually have a sports psychologist on our staff that is available. He's actually the Oklahoma City Thunder sports psychologist, but he's also the sports psychologist for KMN. And it's just having resources like that. And then I will go back to the, what do you do? Which I love everything you said about the extra, knowing the birthdays, sending gifts, all of that. Communication, which can be such a lost art, but staying in constant communication.
Great stuff. Next question.
Hi, my name is Ryan Fuda, currently a student at the University of Oklahoma. Question I have for y'all is, starting your own agency or management company, what is something you wish you knew, like, before going into it?
We don't have enough time.
Wow, yeah, how much time do you have? All the horror stories you hear about being an entrepreneur and just having to grind it out and wearing all the hats. I think count the cost. I would go back and say, Kelly, really, I had this whole idea of how it was going to look for me, and I learned so much in those first few years of how different it was than I thought it was going to be. And just counting the cost, knowing exactly what it's going to take from a time standpoint, from a resources standpoint, and evaluating. Not everybody is meant to start their own agency. It is tough. And we've both worked, I worked in joint venture with a couple of the larger agencies. I saw the way things were done. I preferred to keep my own agency for a lot of reasons, but that's not for everybody. So evaluate, what's the cost of doing this, and am I willing to pay that price?
I agree with everything she said, and I think another thing too is you have to evaluate, like, what are your resources alone versus your resources, like, together with other people. When you're a solo agent and you maybe have 2 agents, or you have an agent and a marketing person, your Rolodex is not very large and stuff. And so you have to make sure, like, okay, if I'm starting on my own, do I have the knowledge, the resources, and the connections to make sure that any guy that I sign can have the same amount of resources that they would have if they were to sign somewhere bigger?
Next question.
My name's Ben Seifert. The question is for Joel. I was just wondering what your favorite Ronnie Lott story was.
When I first met him, I had heard the story about him cutting off part of his pinky, and I didn't know if it was true or not. So I'm trying to be discreet and get a look at his hand without him realizing. He probably realized what I was doing. And it turns out he actually did cut off part of his pinky, not to miss a playoff run. So when I first met him, I was trying to confirm if that story was true.
I love that. Next question.
Yes, I'm Alvin Agee, owner of Athletic Engineering out of Birmingham. My main question was, independently, I've been doing this about 6 years, just player development and talent management. Right now, I'm trying to kind of, transition into the agent category, more so getting bigger athletes as far as like UFL, XFL, NFL type deals. What do you think the biggest difference is just transitioning from, I guess, a manager to the agent level?
I call it the route rule. I'll tell you a story that they'll all appreciate. We had 2 guys from Monroe, Louisiana, take an 8-week course. The mother from Monroe, Louisiana said, "Can you help my son? He's playing in Poland, 26 years old. Kelly's not going to take that kind of a client." And they brought him back, and he played in the XFL and the USFL with Mike Riley. And he's fast, and then he got a tryout with the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy's a Fort Hays guy. And the first touch was 96 yards, and then he had a 66-yard touchdown. He made the team, Pro Bowler 2 of 3 years, Cavante Turpin. So there's an example. There's players out there you don't have to pay any money for because nobody will represent them because there's very little chance. But there are a lot of stories out there. Like, it's a great story about somebody getting started where you randomly run into somebody.
You do, and I think, again, everyone's path is different. You already have experience. You already have a perspective on the industry that maybe other new agents don't. And that can be the strength that you bring to the table, is you have perspective and you have experience that maybe other people don't, and you can lean into that while you're learning how to be an agent and learning how to recruit clients and build a roster.
Did you say you were basically a manager?
Yes, sir. Mainly.
Are you doing day-to-day stuff for clients?
Sir?
Are you doing day-to-day stuff for clients?
It's more like scheduling, that type of thing. I started out with.
Well, that's something that agents do or someone in an agency is doing. So if you become someone they rely on more and more based on what you're already doing, it could become an organic or natural transition if you get certified.
Called a relationship. Next question.
Tanner Williams, University of Alabama. So the salary cap actually just went up 22 million. So as that rises for veterans, like you said, Farren, or for rookies, how do you look at getting those long-term deals with clauses and trying to not only get your player stability, but also trying to get the team stability as well?
Joe, let's start with you since you're Mr. Salary Cap.
Well, for a veteran contract, a lot of it depends on what type of leverage you have. So if you've got someone who's going to be a highly desirable free agent, then also you got to remember you work for the client, not the other way around. So you're trying to accomplish his objectives. If you've got a guy that doesn't care where he plays, he wants every last dollar, then you may tell a team about this time right now that if we're going to forego free agency, I want to have X. If not, we're going to test the market and he may or may not come back. Sometimes what I used to do for a team in an extension negotiation, if a team said we couldn't do something for salary cap purposes, I would ask them, what cap number do you need in the first year? And I'd try to find a way to work around that. But a lot of that depends on your client, what they're trying to accomplish, and what leverage you have.
Kelly, do you have an in-house salary cap person, if I may?
I'm the in-house
I know.
salary cap person.
It's a
Yes.
fair question, though. The
No,
big
it
agencies
is.
do.
I have my biggest key in my agency that's kind of been I feel like our secret weapon is data and analytics, which is, I don't know
Great.
how we're going to function without sports
Yeah,
data and
great.
analytics in-house.
Great stuff. We got a lot going on now. Let's get everybody in. Go ahead.
Jose Sanchez, Indianapolis. I was just wondering, what do the best agents consistently do that most others overlook?
Cheat. No.
I didn't say it. Show up. Show up. Pick up the phone. That's your job. And I think a lot of agents, can sometimes get wrapped up in maybe sometimes they have too many clients and it's just not enough time.
Yeah.
Some agents will kind of gravitate towards their bigger guys, which naturally, like as a business person, got to take care of the big fish and fry those first. But a lot of times it's just little stuff. Show up, answer the phone, go to a game, check in with people around them and stuff. I think, like I said, you can get really caught up in just taking care of, if there's a legal issue with one client, your resources and your time are going to go there. But don't forget, these guys are all going through something else too. So you can't kind of just shut the door just because you're working on something over here. You have to learn how to balance that.
Kelly, you want to add?
I would also just say, impeccable communication. You can be an encourager in your client's life, but you also have to manage expectations.
Yeah.
And you have to speak truth to them, even when it's hard.
She's
So I
right.
think that's a key.
You have to be able to tell a client what he needs to hear as opposed to what he wants to hear. If you're an enabler, you're doing your clients a disservice. And there's a lot of turnover in the industry because there are a lot of unhappy people who aren't getting the benefit of what they thought the bargain was going to be. So if you're someone who is present, like they've both been saying, you can end up being the person for better referrals.
Yeah, next question.
Hi, Frank Passaggio out of Columbus, Ohio. As a fellow marketer, I always think there's a pretty big difference between a realist and a dreamer. So what would you say is the difference in characteristics-wise between athletes that have built a sustainable long-term brand versus those who are just relying on performance?
The ones that I know that have built brands, like I work with Kenny Clark of the Cowboys. I say Packers, I can say Cowboys for now. But again, he's built a variety of businesses. He's had a charity for 9 years, and he wants to put in the work. I think a lot of guys, especially when it comes to, I'll give you an example for football camps. Every NFL guy wants to throw a football camp because their teammates are doing it. 90% of them don't have a reason of why they're doing it. They just want to do it. And then for us, we're just about ready to blow our heads off in June because we have 19 football camps for 21 guys. But there has to just be a larger purpose behind it. And the guys that put in the work off the field in the off season to build those things around them are the ones that usually have a successful business, whether it's businesses, whether it's their charity, whether it's a mixture of both, usually succeed.
Kelly, anything to add?
Have those conversations with clients early. And because when they're young, they may just want to do a camp or have a foundation because everybody else does. And if they don't have a strong why, there's not going to be the commitment. to seeing those visions through. And so I think have those conversations early and then let those opportunities develop. I have clients that talk to big talk when they came out that I want to do this, I want to do that, but there was no bigger purpose behind it. And then I have other players that surprise me that say, hey, I started this, I formed this company, I need help with this. And they're very much self-starters. And so, yeah, I just have those conversations early and keep monitoring.
Last 6 questions, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Aditya Jordia. I'm from California. Just wanted to ask how important are public speaking communication skills for your clients in terms of being able to secure them endorsements, brand deals, and overall just for the representation?
That's a good question. The personality is part of the package.
Actually, it is pretty important because when Leonard first signed Shaq, one of the first things he did was PR and media training with him. Because early Shaq used to mumble, and sometimes Shaq would use that when he would answer questions. So I could tell sometimes he don't like these questions. He's going to mumble his way through the interview. But yeah, you can become more polished, more comfortable with the camera by doing media training, and depending upon that person's personality and how comfortable they are in front of the camera will determine whether you need to go that route.
Next question.
Hi, Josiah from UNC Chapel Hill. Could you speak on the risks of an athlete choosing to represent himself and how you'd explain those risks to the team?
Yeah, for the most part, you don't see a ton of players representing themselves. I know Lamar Jackson does, Bobby Wagner does, Richard Sherman didn't do the best job for himself, but teams don't want to sit across from a player and not have a buffer because that can create potential ill will if they have to criticize a player's performance. But if you're going to be someone who does it without an agent, I guarantee you in 9 out of 10 cases, there is someone behind the scenes who is experienced, who is helping that player navigate the whole landscape.
That's true. That's true. Next question. Thanks, Joe.
Hi, Zachary Carver from Tampa, Florida. Similar to Kelly, I'm actually a civil litigator and do transactional work as well. And 3 years ago, I became certified as an NFL agent in NBA. And I have a kind of specific question for you guys is, I got 2 guys that are projected or graded as undrafted guys, as well as late day 3 picks. But the hard thing I'm having is promoting them to scouts and teams. And I know a few scouts there, but I've only been doing it for 3 years. So making those relationships, which is huge, that's been a little bit of a challenge on it. So I guess kind of between now and day 3 of the draft, what can I do? Because what strategies did you guys do when you had kind of those late day 3 UDFA guys to kind of promote their name? I know they're playing and promote them themselves.
Kelly, let me just say something, being on the other side for 30 years. You don't agent your way to the NFL. You play your way to the tapes, pro day. I stay away from that. They won't take my call when there's legitimacy if I call too many times. So that's just mine. But you guys say what you want.
Let me share a quick story just to speak to that. I think it was either my first or second year, and I was representing an offensive lineman from University of Texas, El Paso. I was at his pro day, and everyone was pretty new, so I was still getting to know the scouts in the industry, building relationships. And I focused on just having conversations and getting to know the scouts and their story. And I didn't spend a lot of time blowing them up about why they should take my guy. The tape speaks for itself. What he was about to, this was when we were all standing around having coffee before the pro day. I wasn't going to stand there and tell him what he was going to do. I was going to let him do his, perform, and then discuss that, evaluate their evaluation of what he put on the field and what he put on tape. And be able to answer questions, especially if it came to character, if it came to medical, if it came to background. Happy to have those conversations, wanting to make sure that teams have all the information they need to make the best choice about that player. But I sat there, the reason why I'm telling that story is I sat there and I listened to another agent who had a player in a similar situation, absolutely blowing up John Robinson about why he was so wrong and why every scout was so wrong about his player, and basically trying to tell him how to do his job. And I made a mental note, I will never be that guy. I will never be that agent. Be a great advocate, and that is just making sure that the teams have all the right information, questions are answered, but it's the player is going to get drafted or signed based on his performance.
Yeah, good stuff. Next question.
Thank you.
My name is Ben, and my question is, what can you do when you're first starting out to differentiate yourself to get someone to give you a chance? Because I think it's one thing to look up to a bunch of agents and send out your resume a ton of times, and a whole other thing to get someone to actually like maybe believe in you, even if it's a super small chance.
Are you talking about a player believing you or like an agency bringing you on?
Agency bringing you on.
Ooh, that's a tough question nowadays. Within my experience, it was always the internships that I got, whether it was at Athletes First or before, was because I knew players. So transparently in this room, my resume at Athletes First was put at the top because Matt Barkley was my dearest friend at USC and he was coming out that year. And his dad, and they've done to each other very well. So it was some transactional stuff, but I think, you know, everyone's resume is going to be very similar. So if I was accepting interns and looking at all resumes, you guys are all going to have a lot of, you know, a lot of you are going to have law degrees, a lot of you are going to have sports management, a lot of you are going to have background, but it's just where can you put yourself in to where when you're going into an agency and you're interviewing for a job, you have to think, what am I bringing that agency that's different? Do I know players? Am I connected with Coca-Cola or Pepsi where I can do marketing? Like, what are you doing that's different that the resume can't tell? Because again, at the end of the day, we have, the company has to drive revenue. So whether that is marketing revenue or whether that is contract revenue, everyone can have the same schooling, but there has to be something that you bring that's a little bit different.
Kelly, real quickly, I found out as the first 20 I had in 3 years, there's so many referrals. I got one kid from Stanford, next year I got another kid. I got 3 in a row at Oregon, but it was all back to getting the first slot and then referral of the brother, the sister, whatever. Am I right? It's still a lot of
No, it is. And again, it's a relationship business. And I'll echo exactly what you just said. Over the years, I've hired interns, I've hired agents. Sometimes I would hire them just because I really, really believe in them and they're hungry and they're ready to learn. But if they don't bring clients to the table or relationships that can turn into revenue, we don't do it just for the money, but it's a business.
Yeah.
It's not a nonprofit. You have to have clients.
Last question from this young man from St. Louis. Go ahead.
Well, this is really cool panel. This is SMWW First. We're live streaming your session, but what's significant about it, we left the comments open. This question is actually from a live viewer right now. This is pretty cool. We've never done this before in 29 years, but here it is. Here's the question. You guys are killing it. I love the question. How many undrafted players sign with a team and become successful?
Good question.
Most of my roster.
Well, the guy who's going to become the highest paid kicker was undrafted. That's going to be Brandon Aubrey. So our most prominent client was undrafted John Randall. So I have guys who were drafted in rounds that don't exist anymore who became very successful.
And Matt Moore was undrafted. He played 12 years.
I've had Keyshawn Nixon and he was undrafted and then went to Green Bay and became an all-pro.
Yeah.
So it happens.
It is crazy. I've had obviously represented first rounders all the way through 7th and priority free agents. My most successful, longest careers have come from undrafted players that were just so hungry and grateful for an opportunity.
So let's
Jeff, thanks for the question.
Thank you very much. SMWW, thank you. Your ethics and Jill, what you do for us, and Farren, your success with Kelly. And you have a book, right?
I do.
What's the name of the book?
Oh, it's called High Impact Life.
Yeah.
Something about secrets from a sports
Yeah,
agent.
it's very insightful.
Help you find your purpose.
But let's take what we call a Red Bull break. We're going to do drug enhancement, if I may. And we'll be back in 15 minutes. Take a break. Thank you, guys.